Greetings, this is Trey, FKA, Taboo Tarot Reader, aka author of Astrology for Divination. And in this long reel video, I would briefly like to deep dive into the decolonization of astrology and why the delegitimization of archaeoastronomy is a byproduct of white supremacy culture. We have to acknowledge, I feel, that astrology, tarot, divination, it's taboo because of white supremacy culture and Christian colonization, period. And when you can accept that, that is when you start to see how deep the rot runs in higher education and how the labeling of archaeoastronomy as a pseudoscience has been by design and deliberate in order to defend the paradigm of colonial white supremacy and patriarchy, this house of sand that all of these patriarchal academics have built their careers off of. And therefore, when you understand that they will do anything to defend their pot of gold, their paradigm, that is how you come to understand that the delegitimization of astrology and the separation of astrology from astronomy and the compartmentalization of astrology from astronomy, again, has been deliberate and by design in order to keep people in the dark and not connect the dots. Because when you start to study the work of Dr. Robert Bauval, Dr. Robert Schoch, John Anthony West, Graham Hancock, who redated the Sphinx and now have proven that the theory of the Orion alignment with the Giza Plateau is no longer a theory, it is now fact, because it is in resonance with what the indigenous Sufi people of the Giza Plateau have been saying since forever, that these ancient megalithic structures like the pyramids, Stonehenge, any ancient structure, they are star maps and they correlate generally with different constellations or stars. And that sky-ground correlation is very sacred, is encapsulated as the as above, so below statement or mantra. And this is threatening to the capitalistic, colonial, patriarchal status quo because it is forcing us to rewrite history. It's forcing us to change the Euro-centric timelines because we can, with archaeoastronomy and software that uses precession to recreate the skies from ancient epochs, we can arrive at a timestamp now and give a likely probable date of when these various structures were built given to what constellations they align. And when you have that match, that to me is, again, is why there's this even more concerted effort to label so many legitimate scholars with PhDs who are studying this stuff as pseudoscientists. And this deflection, delegitimization, and discarding of astronomy and astrology and cosmology of the ancients, whether or not you want to admit it, is because, like most things, of racism and white supremacy culture. In higher academia for decades, it has been so taboo to acknowledge this woo-woo spiritual stuff. Like, for example, basic astronomical aspects of sites like Serpent Mound in Ohio and Turtle Island, aka the separate states of America, are without a doubt astronomical structures that are solstice markers. And this has been proven, and yet so many white American archaeologists continue to gaslight and rewrite us about Native American history and say that Serpent Mound has no astronomical functions. And it is just clear as day that they refuse to acknowledge something that is just obvious about the site, that it, again, is a solstice marker. And when you ask, well, why are they so resistant to this? Like, isn't authentic science supposed to be open to where the objective information, the new information takes you? And aren't you not supposed to be like attached to your theories that made you money and fame and a career? Yeah, you know, that's because, again, this isn't about expanding our capacities to understand and know the truth. This is about defending a paradigm. And that paradigm, again, is colonial white supremacy, Euro hegemony, and therefore archaeoastronomy and astrology are very threatening to the status quo because it forces us to do so much decolonization shadow work. And that's what I've learned in my journey with studying, again, ancient Vedic and Mayan and Chinese and ancient Egyptian astrology and cosmology, is that the more you deep dive into this stuff, the more that you may come to realize or become aware of is that when people belittle you as a person because you study astrology, because you study the tarot or divination, it's because they're still colonized, they're still in the cycle of ancestral trauma, and they have internalized white supremacy.